Hello and welcome back to my Flosstube. It's been a long time since I posted, and I was thinking about posting back in December, but I couldn't figure out how to restart. So I decided today that I'm just gonna do a clean slate WIP parade. I've made a lot of progress since my last video, and I have a lot of things to show you. I decided to go in order from least complete to most complete, because that's my favorite way to sort my projects in my spreadsheet. So to begin with the least complete, I have my chatelaine that I started, I started January 22nd. This is Small Hanam Oasis. I really like this pattern. I kitted it up in January of 2022, and I think it looks fantastic. When I kitted it up, I planned to start it. I had picked out some white linen, just general white Zweigart linen, and I sat there trying to do the first stitch, and I couldn't for the longest time. And then I just unkitted it, was like, you know what, this is too much for me, I can't do it. And then I started it, Winter Fairy banner from chatelaine, and that kind of got me into it. I thought it would be an easier pattern, but as I've been stitching this, I actually think that this is the easier stitching so far. The entire border of this is Krynic, 4 different shades. Oh no, it's not Krynic, it's Petite Treasure Braid, 4 different shades of Petite Treasure Braid, and it's easy to work with. I'm enjoying it a lot. This is at 5%. This is a 28 count Springfield Sage Lugana from Zweigart. I had looked at the chatelaine gallery, and I really liked, there was a version of this done on a dark gray, and I thought that looked great, but I know that I struggle to want to work on pieces that are on fabric that's too dark because I don't have great lighting or magnification. So I didn't want it to be white, but I thought that this Springfield Sage, which to me is almost a grayish green color, very light grayish green color, that's what I ended up going with. And I'm not going to be using the Gloriana silks on this. When I kitted it up, Glorianas weren't available, and now as I go to look for the Glorianas, which is the only thing that I don't have for this pattern, they're $9 a skein, and I need 6 of them for this, and I'm going to find ways to substitute, probably with Cairn Water Lilies, because I have a ton of Cairn Water Lilies, but these are the 4 Petite Treasure Braids that go all around the border of this project. And then I'll just show these 2 because they are beautiful. The majority of this project is covered in these NPI silks, and this is why I was drawn to this project, because I love teal, and I just think these are fantastic. But yeah, here's some of the dinky dyes. This is a water lily that I'm looking at substituting, but yeah, lots of fun to work with materials in this. This is the Gloriana that I've substituted so far. It's just one, and it was a solid colored Gloriana in a very deep blue, and on the project it's in here, and I'm fine with the substitution. I've been referencing the chatelaine gallery to make sure that my substitutions are a true fit, because I want to make sure that I do it justice. But yeah, so that is my least complete project, chatelaine, Small Hanam Oasis. Get this guy put away. Next up is a Bella Filipina. It is Hummingbird Fairy. I kitted this up years ago and didn't start it. And then in June of well, yeah, June of 2024, I decided to start it just like on a whim, and I hardly got anything done on this. It is at 5.34%. Based on my best guess, this doesn't go into Pattern Keeper very well, but it does go into Pattern Keeper, so. Here is my little start just on her skirt there. When I say it does go into Pattern Keeper, like all the blank spaces are in Pattern Keeper as well. So it's hard to say for sure how accurate my 5.34% is, but that's my best guess. And that is my start on that. I actually have been thinking about UFOing this. My tastes have changed since I originally bought this pattern, but I go back and forth because it is so colorful, and I know like it's gonna be such a joy to work on. It's so colorful, and I already have like all the treasures and stuff. There's a different Bella Filipina that I want to start, and this is taking up a Bella Filipina slot in my list of projects. My goal, I should say, well, I don't even know if I would call it a goal, but I'm allowed to have 24 projects. That's like the maximum. And I've managed to stick to that really well, because I only have 24 projects. But if I want to start something new, I need to like think about what I need to finish and like get off the list. And that's really been leading me to think about what I like to have on my wall and what I like to stitch, and trying to find things that like encompass both categories. Because previously I would start something just because I thought I'd like to stitch it, but then I have all these finishes that I don't want to hang on my wall because it's not really the kind of style of thing that I want to see on my wall. So I'm trying to be very specific about picking things that like perfectly encompass both of those categories, and that's the goal for this year. And so Hummingbird Pixie does not fall under things that I would want to put on my wall, but it's in the I want to stitch it category. So going forward, I probably won't be starting projects like that. Next up is The Birds Winter by Luca S. This is a kit that they sent me, which was so nice of them. It is at, I did put this into Pattern Keeper. I think it's at about 10%, but again, this is one where I can't tell for sure, but my best guess is about 10%. I really enjoy this pattern. I like birds. I like the colors of this. Here's where I'm at. This came with a linen in the kit, but I decided to switch it out. So this is on 28 count Cashel linen Winter Moon, in the color Winter Moon. If there's like blank spaces in a pattern, I don't like to do it on Aida because I don't like the way blank Aida, like I feel like the holes deter from what I'm stitching, which is why I decided to sub it onto this. And that's that one. Next up is my only Teresa Wentzler. It is called Camelot Sampler. I got it online from Patterns Online, which sells Teresa Wentzler's patterns. This project I used, so I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Bake Off stitching game that Justin Marie Does Stuff came up with, and I kind of adjusted it so that it would work with Dancing with the Stars because I love Dancing with the Stars. So this piece got a lot of stitching during Dancing with the Stars because it was Reginald VelJohnson's like piece, and so it came up a lot early in the season, so I was able to get a lot of stitching into this. This jouster is almost completely done, and he is 1/1 full cross on this 25 count Cream Lugana from the Zweigart. And then this border came up in Bringo because I picked this as my border Bringo piece. So I actually got a lot done on it. This border has some 1/1 in it as well. It's really intricate and I enjoy it a lot. Yep, that is Camelot Samper from Teresa Wensler. This one I think is at about 12.04%. And I enjoy it a lot. I did put this one into Pattern Keeper as well, but it didn't go in there. It was 25 pages and I did them one at a time. It was, but now it's in there. So it was an undertaking in and of itself. Next up is a Dimensions piece that I started in October of 2023, and it is called A Treasure Time. I really like this piece, and I'm surprised I haven't gotten more of it done. But I think because I don't know. I have no excuses. I don't know why I don't work on this more, but this one is at 14.57%, which is pretty accurate because I do have this in Pattern Keeper, but it's full coverage. So what it says in Pattern Keeper is the truth. I did send an email to Dimensions yesterday asking them to send me the PDF copy. So hopefully they do that, and that'll make it a lot more enjoyable to stitch on if I'm able to sort the symbols in Pattern Keeper. That would be fantastic. Oops, well, it's gone now. Okay. Oh, there we are. That is where I'm at. The last time I worked on this, I did some back stitching on the bridge and in the people. So it's starting to come alive. There in the center. It's kind of shocking, like, this piece of fabric isn't that big. Like, I'll take it off here so you can see. This is how big the piece of fabric is. And that is only 14% of this project. So it looks like it should be more, but Dimensions doesn't give you a lot of margins though, so it is going to come out pretty far to the edges, but there is A Treasure Time. This was, I've been doing temperature stitching, which is, how does it work? So I'm going with every day's low temperature. That number is assigned to a project. And I have 5 projects. So 0 and 1 is a project, 2 and 3 is a project, 4 and 5 is a project, 6 and 7 is a project, 8 and 9 is a project. So I have 5 projects that I'm using for temperature stitching. And last month, this was one of the 5 projects and it only came up once, which was crazy. This month I decided, because I also did Bringo last month, and this was actually on Bringo as well, so it did get worked on a couple times last month. But I decided that this month for my temperature stitching, I picked my 3 least complete projects and my 2 most complete projects, and that comprised the 5 projects that I'm working on for Bringo. Next up is from Kerato's Samplings, a map of Hawk Run Hollow. I started this on January 15th of 2023. And I thought it looked like such a cute little stitch, and how foolish and naive I was. Because it is a cute stitch, but it is not little. It is massive. And I think I was for a while putting 1 strand a day into this, and then I fell off doing that. This would fall like solely into the category of things I would love to have on my wall, but not things that I necessarily love to stitch. That's where I'm at. And as this comes up, it's my 6th least complete project at 16.74%. So it's gonna end up in the temperature stitching here before too long as things pass it, and then it'll get some more work done on it. but I'm not going to UFO it because it's one of the only primitives I have, and I really would like to have this on my wall because I love maps. And yep, so that is Map of Hawthorne Hollow. Next up is a full coverage piece that I started in April of 2023. I had bought several kits from a lot of different brands. I was trying out kits, and this one, oh no, I zipped the NPI silks. Oh, it'll be okay. Okay, so next up is Mermaid Kiss, which is a kit from Lutty Stitch. It also says down at the bottom here, in association with Luca S. So it's like a Lutty Stitch / Luca S kit. And I don't remember who I saw doing this, and I saw it and I thought, I want to have that. And so I bought this one to test out because I liked it, and also because I wanted to test out Lutty Stitch kits. I have this on a Q-snap, so let me get this taken off. This is on pre-gridded fabric. It's the only project that I have on pre-gridded fabric. And before I put this in Pattern Keeper, it was a lot more handy, but now Pattern Keeper's grids doesn't line up with the original grid, so it's not as handy. But here is where it's at. This is at 19.07%. And so far it's just a lot of ocean and blue, but I'm running out of ocean to stitch on. And then there'll be the ship and the mermaid and the sailor. You can see the little lighthouse there and some little birds. Yep, this one is at 19.07%. Next up is from Stitchrovia, from her book Cross Stitch for the Earth. I saw this on Instagram, and I'm really into gardening, biking, hiking. I really like the solitude of the forest, both actually and in theory. Oh my gosh, these clips are flying. And that is where I'm at with it. This was a temperature stitch from last month. It is at 19.59%. And honestly, this project flies. Like every time I work on it, I get so much done because there is so much blank space in between the different parts of this project that it just stitches up so quickly. And when I started up here on the orange, I was like, this is really orange. But then I looked back at the pattern, and as everything else comes in around it, it'll really tone it down. So I'm just trusting the process right now. That is that one. Next up, so last month I did Bringo, and one of the prompts was a monochromatic project. And I don't have a monochromatic project, but I had seen a little Christmas ornament in a magazine, and I thought I would use that for the monochromatic Bringo prompt. And I put it on here. I put it on this, I had already had a finish a few years ago on here, but I had so much extra fabric, so I started it down here, and it's actually showing up pretty well on camera. In person it's nearly invisible, but it's I'm doing it 1/1, this little stocking, and I'm gonna turn it into a little Christmas ornament when I'm done. But this was what is that? It's at 19.62%, and this was literally just the hour that I had it as a Bringo prompt. So that's fun and easy. This could be an easy finish anytime I want, if I want to free up a space for a new start. I subbed out the called for colors, and I'm using this treasure braid that I had left over from a chatelaine, as well as, and I literally just and this floss. I don't even know, I didn't even write down what color it was, but that's what I did. Next up is number 10, And this is another Christmas one. This is Barbershop, Christmas Village, which is a little Mill Hill Buttons and Beads kit. I have a few of these finished, and this one I had planned to finish last year, and then I just kind of fell off the rails with it. Here is where it's at. I've been backstitching and beading as I go, so it's gonna be really cute when it's done. I really like that this isn't like a traditional, it's like a topiary, it's not like a traditional kind of Christmas tree. And that is that one. And I'm not doing this on the perforated paper that is called for in the kit. I am doing this on, what is this? This is a Lugana, or is it a Joblin? 32 count coffee Joblin from Witchelt. And the beads fit on it just fine. Next up is another full coverage kit from what has become my favorite kit brand, Marechka. This one is called the Old City. And the first time that I showed this on my Flosstube, I think I said that I wasn't in love with it. I wasn't in love with stitching all the primary colors. There's a lot of yellow, red, blue, and green in here. I know green isn't a primary color, but like very, very primary. But this has quickly become my favorite piece to work on. I am at 30.43% on this, and I have two or three more Marechka kits that I am planning to start as space opens up on my list. I've been working on this one pretty much every day since Christmas, and I have a thread and a needle on it, but you should still be able to see it just fine. I just love stitching on this one. And I love Marechka's charts. They're so easy to read. Here is where I'm at. I think what I'm really enjoying about this is I'll do like a little piece and then I'll go back in and back stitch it. Do a little piece, go back in and back stitch it. So it's really coming alive as I stitch it. And I think when I originally got this pattern, it's so bright, I didn't realize that this is like a rain scene. Everybody has umbrellas and there's like a shimmery reflective kind of rainwater on the ground, which is really another element to this that I'm really enjoying. I also love this lantern. I just think that's great. But yeah, that is the Old City from Marechka. And it is at 30.43%. So 30%. And actually I haven't updated that in a couple days, so it's probably, it may be closer to 35 now. Make sure I put the, I'm gonna be searching for Q snaps after this because I keep leaving them out. Okay, next up is Silver Moon Tea, which I started in March of 2023, and it is on 32 count lavender Lugana. I got this to give to my daughter because she loves tea, and several years ago we kind of had an inside joke about Earl Grey, and it's kind of like fallen to the wayside as new things have come up, but she still loves tea. She's pretty much moved out now, but yesterday she came home to pick up a teapot. So she's a tea girly, and this is definitely right up her alley. It is at 35.91%. This is a full coverage, essentially, Mirabilia. When I started it, I had it on an 11-inch Q-snap and it fit perfectly. So I was beading as I went along, but I found now that I don't like 11-inch Q-snaps. They're a little too big for me. So I have this little bit of beading done up here that I have to be careful of every time I snap it into the Q-snap. But the last time I worked on her, I well, actually, the last time I worked on her, I worked over here, but the time before that, I put her face in, and I decided to do her 1/1 skin. And I just think this is the happiest I've ever been with a face that I have stitched. The tension is great. Like, I'm really happy with it. She does have arms, like naked, well, skin on her arms, so that's going to be a bunch more 1/1, but I am really happy with it. And that is Silver Moon Tea at 35.91%. Next up is a Soda Stitch pattern that I started in April of 2023. At the time, a lot of people were doing Soda Stitch patterns, and I wanted something to participate in the Soda Stitch kind of stitch along that was going on at the time. But the people patterns aren't something that I would enjoy stitching and also wouldn't like on my wall, but I did find a pattern that has to do with gardening, which is something that I love. And I have been working on this piece called My Gardening. It is at 37%. And I've been back stitching this one as I go. And it's coming along. This is actually a lot of fun. This definitely falls in the category of fun to stitch. Like, even almost like cupboard here with like the little brickwork over here. I was looking at the Soda Stitch store the other day, and there's like a Christmas piece. It's like a tree kind of with like houses sitting on it. It's almost like a primitive style, and I have that on the list of things like to really consider if I want to start or not, because again, sometimes working on primitive pieces is a real slog for me. Like, yes, I would love to have them on my wall, but they're just not something that I enjoy stitching. But this one is very enjoyable to stitch, especially when the back stitching goes in. It's just, yeah, gorgeous. So that is My Gardening, and this is also on 28 Count Springfield Sage Lugana. This is the same. This is part of why I picked it for my chatelaine, because I knew that it was really nice to work on. It's a great base, like neutral fabric. That being said, I do have a bunch of dye sitting in a carton line as I sit there. I have this giant cut of, I think it's like a 1 yard piece of 32 count white linen that I bought a few years ago. And I've been thinking about like cutting it up and trying my hand at fabric dyeing to get some like really wild colors and stuff going and find some products to put on them, but we'll see. We'll see. That I haven't ordered them yet because I also think it's gonna be messy, and I don't know if I want to deal with that. Maybe when I can do it outside. Next up is a magazine piece. It's called Autumn's Glow, and I'd looked at this one quite a few times, and then I think late last year, the Seattle Stitcher had posted about starting this one, and that was the push I needed to actually start it. It's so gorgeous. It's a lot of, I would call this like the Ukrainian or style of pattern, where there's a lot of blends, a lot of colors, and a lot of back stitching. But it's so well worth it because it looks great as you go. The last I stitched this, it was when it was a Bringo call last month, and I was able to get that done in an hour. I was trying to figure out what these are, and they are ground cherries. I was watching like a gardening YouTube channel, and I finally figured out what they are. They're ground cherries, which is, I guess, like a kind of a sweet tomato fruit that's like wrapped in paper, kind of like a tomatillo. Yeah, very pretty. Number 15 is Seafarer's Globe. This one I started in May of 2023. I had seen it not in a magazine, but I saw it. It was like in an advertisement in a magazine. There was like a cell phone holding up, like it was supposed to be for like a cross stitch app, but this was the pattern that was showing in the app. And so I had to like reverse image search it and find it. I can't get the zipper open. It doesn't want to be shown. Okay, got it. So this piece I have not worked on much. Sometimes I'll get really into it and get a bunch of stitches into it and then just leave it for months at a time. This is on 25 count Potato Lugana, which is a lovely fabric, and I think it looks really good with this kind of like antique map sort of presentation. But that is Seafarer's Globe. I got this on Creative Poppy is where I found it. It's by Maria Diaz, and it went into Pattern Keeper pretty well, except that Creative Poppy has watermarks on their patterns, and that part always messes up Pattern Keeper. So I ended up having to leave this entire section out of Pattern Keeper. So I've been having to refer back to the chart to stitch those pieces. So the last time I did it, I was trying to get through all of that, but it's always scary to like come out here, because if I come all the way out here and then I start stitching up here and it doesn't match up, I'll be disappointed. So I kind of like to work like in at angles so that I can't mess myself up so badly. But that is Seafarer's Globe, and I am not doing this in the called for threads. I had wanted to try out CXC thread, so this is a project on CXC, using CXC I should say, and I think it looks really great. There's definitely some color differences between CXC and DMC, and even the tone I would say is a little bit softer just in general, but because I'm using CXC for all of them, I think it actually looks really great, and it's a little bit fluffier, which is kind of nice on this 25 count. But then I decided not to do it on any further projects, mostly because this project, especially on the 25 count, like I had bought a full set, but now there's entire colors that I don't have, that I won't have anymore, and to reorder them, I can't get them locally, and it just didn't make sense. And especially since I have pretty much a master set of DMC that I work from, I didn't want to be mixing and matching, so I gave them all to my daughter to use for like friendship bracelets and stuff like that. Next is September Sapphire Fairy. This one is Mirabilia, and it is at 45%. I am stitching this for my daughter. I had asked her to pick one out that she would like, my oldest daughter, the one who moved out recently, and this is the one she picked. I started stitching this in October of 2023, and I'm at 45%. I am stitching this on 28 count Picture This Plus Jazz Lugana. Which is working out great. It's a lot of fun. Most of my projects are on pretty neutral fabrics, but since this was for my daughter, who really likes a lot of color, I picked out this one to go on, and I think it goes really well together. I think I had said at one point that I wasn't gonna stitch her face until last, but I changed my mind and I put her face in there. I didn't do any of the back stitching yet, and everything that's missing in her hair is all beads, so her hair is bead heavy. It's gonna be gorgeous. And that is her. Next up is a piece that I started just before Christmas in 2023. It is by Maria Domina, aka little room in the attic. I had seen someone stitching one of her projects and I hadn't heard of her before, so I went to check out what she had, and I ended up finding this one, and I thought it was super cute and unique and a style that I hadn't seen before, and it has been so much fun to work on. This was part of my temperature stitching last month, and so it got quite a lot of work done on it. Let me get it off the Q-snap here. It is in Pattern Keeper, and it went in there perfectly. So it is at 53%, and it is fantastic. That's what it is. It's just fantastic. The back stitching is a lot. There's between 1 and 4 strands of black back stitching to create this like super cool painted effect. This is 28 count Joblin, but it's ultralight Joblin, which unfortunately has been discontinued because I love this fabric. There's this one, and then there was Summer Sky, which is a light blue. That's actually what this one is done on. The ultralight, and by ultralight, it's like super thin and a little bit stretchy, which I love about it, especially on the Q-snap. But there it is. That KitchenAid mixture in the pink and mint. Like, I don't even think that's a real one you can get, but man, if it was, adorable. Over here is the like patisserie shelf with the like cakes and cupcakes and whatnot on it, and then there's another one of these little cushions that has a cat on it. So that's what the other half of this piece is. And honestly, there isn't that many stitches in here. I would say the back stitching takes up a lot of the time. Hopefully you can see kind of the back stitching effect. I love this piece. But again, this falls into the category of things that I love to stitch, but that I wouldn't necessarily put on my wall. But it's so much fun. That is Yes I Can Bake from Maria Demina. Next up is a stitch along. This is the Lola Crow Greenhouse of Oddities stitch along. And I started this project at the beginning of the stitch along, and I stitched that entire border just like I was supposed to. And it was a ton, it was like 7,000 stitches, 7,000 black stitches, which was hard for me because I don't like monochrome stitching, obviously, which is why I didn't have something for that Bringo prompt. But, and then when I think we were given 6 weeks to do that, so I knocked that out. And then when the actual like pattern started coming out, I really fell off. So most of the stitching on here has been done like a day here, a day there. This was started in April of 2023. And I love gardening. I love greenhouses. I love plants. Like, this really should be right up my alley. But I struggled to want to work at it. I got burnt out on that frame. I'm just not a monochromatic stitching girly, but this is a really fun project. And I love that each of these elements that she like put a blurb in about them, so you kind of learn what you're stitching there. And it is at 53.52%, so it'll be a while before this, if it's not something, so the way I'm doing my temperature stitching is I have to do an hour on those 3 least and 2 most complete projects that are on my temperature stitching list. And then if I do any more stitching that day, it can be on whatever I want. And this just doesn't seem to come up in the whatever I want, and it's not high or low enough in my completion to make it onto my temperature stitching list. So the last time this came out was last month. I think actually it came out twice. It was a Bringo prompt twice, which they're doing again in April. So if you don't know what that is, it's the magazine monthly challenge group on Facebook. They do kind of like a WIP Go board, but it's like monthly, It's like a bingo board, and you have all these different prompts, and you pick different days for stuff, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was the first time I did it, but I really enjoyed it. And I have 24 projects. There's 25 slots on the bingo board, so I got to touch everything once, and oh no, it wasn't this one. It was Earth Goddess that was on there twice, but yeah, so it helped me put my hands on everything throughout January, which was really nice. But that is Lola Crow's Greenhouse of Oddities. Next up is another Mill Hill kit. This one I picked up. I don't really have a LNS, but I do have a store that sells a lot of Mill Hill kits. And a few years ago, yeah, I started this in February 2023. I picked this up as something I could stitch in the car because I spent a lot of time in my car back then for work. I don't anymore, so I don't really have a car stitch anymore. And I'm also kind of moving away from the Mill Hill kits. There's just so many things I want to work on. I need to get more selective, which is something I'm doing, but let me show there we go. This is Fairy Garden. And I am not stitching this on the perforated paper. It comes with a nice light blue perforated paper. I am stitching this on 28 count cashel linen in the color doubloons. It was just a little piece that I had got from 123 Stitch that I just had laying around. This is full coverage, so it doesn't really matter what I did it on. I could have done it on Ada, honestly, but I didn't. This is what I did. It's actually kind of a waste of such a beautiful piece of fabric, but it's done now. This was years ago. This is the old me. New me would not do this. But there it is. Very cute. And it is at, I think, about 55%. This one I don't even have in pattern paper. I just open it in paint and I like highlight as I go. That is Fairy Garden. Next up is a kit that I started. I just have 2018, and honestly it might have been earlier. I don't even know. It was something that I had planned to probably not work on again. I stitched a lot when I was younger, and I've stitched a lot over the past 2-3 years. And in the in-between time, every now and then I would buy a pattern, or I would like go to Joann's and just pick something up. And this was one of those times. It's, I don't even have the cover sheet anymore. I lost it. It's a Dimensions kit called Be a Light to the World. And I was going to UFO it. And then I looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is not that big of a pattern. And I don't like the idea of UFOing stuff. Like, I started it, and it's a beautiful pattern, actually. This is something I would definitely put on my wall, but I don't necessarily like working on this dark Ada, but it's actually growing on me. Imagine small Nam Oasis on this. I think that'd be quite something. But anyways, I digress. When I pulled it out earlier, last month, I pulled it out for Bringo, and I only had really like this one in there, and I looked at it and I almost planned to UFO it, but then I didn't. And so I did all this stuff. I just started working on it nonstop to hopefully get it so far. Like right now it's at about 60%. My goal was to get it so far done that I couldn't justify UFOing it in the future. And I just love the look of this. These are half stitches in the background, but you can see like the leaf imprint in them. That I just think that looks amazing. It's so cool. And that is that one. I have 4 left. So next up is a Christmas piece that I'm working on. This is going to be a gift from my mom. It's called Winter Delivery from Madame Chantilly. I started this in December of 2023, and actually this was a temperature stitch last month, so it got worked on quite a bit. And here's where it's at. I'm doing this on 32 count petite point, gray and white Lugana, which I think is great. It kind of like creates like a snow effect. These sheep are charted in white, which is what this snowflake is, as well as the center of these wheels. Yeah. But I had whisper thread. Oh wow. On camera you can see like the dots through the sheep. You can't really see it in person, but yeah, on camera it's like x-ray vision. You can see the like the dots underneath them. But I decided to do them in whisper thread instead of the white because I thought it would give them like that wool sheep sort of effect, and it does. In person they're very, very cute. Big fan. Glad I made that change. I think I have this written down at 70%. All that's left is the girl pulling the cart over here, and I think it's charted in kind of a like light red, kind of orangish hair color, but I want to change it to like a soft brownish blonde like my mom's hair, because this represents her. Like, it's Christmas time and she's running around. She doesn't have sheep, but she might as well for all the stuff she's got on her cart and what she's doing. My mom like never stops. She is like the Energizer Bunny. But yeah, this should be ready to gift to her for next Christmas. Even if it doesn't come up as temperature stitching, I'm gonna make sure that I get this done. Yeah, and as I was talking about before, so I have Map of Hawk Run Hollow, and I have this one, and those are basically my only two primitive pieces. I see them, and a lot of times I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great, I love that, I want that on my wall. But then when I get to stitching it, it's just not as enjoyable for me as pieces that have like beading and backstitch and all that kind of fancy stuff. I definitely enjoy stitching fancy stuff more than this. However, the whisper thread was quite an undertaking. That was like an ordeal and a half. At times, the more I did it, the better I got at it, but I think I used nearly a whole, no, there's a little bit left on here. I'll show this whisper thread for anybody who hasn't seen it before. It's like it's a little bit hairy. It's very soft and fuzzy. You see it a lot in, that was just a little piece, I guess. You see it a lot in like mirabilias as like fur cuffs and Santa's beard maybe. This was in my chatelaine piece that I UFO'd as the fairy on it that I didn't like. The trim of her dress had this like fur lining. So that is number 21 at 70%. Next up is another mirabilia. This is actually maybe a Nora Corbett. It's available online to download from Hirschner's. It does go into Pattern Keeper. Like, that's the reason I bought it, because I thought, oh, this is a PDF, it'll probably go into Pattern Keeper really well. And it did and it didn't. It's sideways in Pattern Keeper, which isn't a big deal. I just stitch it sideways and then straighten it on the fabric, but sometimes it does mess with my head. I have to like figure out my orientation and like what I'm doing. But whoa, sorry. This one I didn't get any of the beads or fancy floss for this. I decided I was going to substitute everything that I could possibly need as far as like fancy floss and beads from my stash, because I have lots and lots of fancy floss and stuff like that. And so that's what I've been doing. So far, actually, I got most of the main stitching done. This is at 72.77%. I got most of the main stitching done and have been just started on the fancy stuff. So far, I have subbed out her crown, her lips, and her brooch just for Krynics that I had. And now I've been working on this trick or treat banner, And I am doing that with one strand of blending filament and one strand of this dark brown DMC. This is the blending filament I'm using. It is silver metallic. I think this is a sulky. It is a sulky. And one strand of blending filament is very unwieldy. The next time I do this, not on this product because I've already gotten so far with the one strand, but I will always use 2 strands and a loop start with blending filament because it gets away from me. It tries to break and stretch and like it's unwieldy. So next time I use blending filament, it'll be 2 strands loop started for sure. Or no, not loop started. What's the opposite of a loop start? The loop is going to be on my needle and the ends are going to be tucked into the project so it cannot go anywhere. When this came up as my Bringo piece, I worked on it for an hour doing this trick or treat, and I think I got like 98 stitches in an hour, and I was like pulling my hair out trying to get this blending filament to behave. But I've made it this far. All I've left is treat and then what's over here, so I'm definitely going to finish it, but it was giving me a hard time for sure. But that's the trick or treat Mira, which will probably be done this year for Halloween. It's actually, since it's the 3rd most complete and my next 2 pieces are nearly done, this is going to definitely come up next month in temperature stitching, so it'll probably be finished next month because there's not that much left of it. And all the rest of it is like super fun stuff like beads and pumpkins. I love stitching pumpkins, so that will be that. Next up is a Bella Filipina that I'm nearly done. I actually could have finished it yesterday, but I didn't have a free 11-inch Q-snap, and I needed that to not crush the beads that I had on it. And this is a mermaid that I bought specifically because the entire project could fit on an 11-inch Q-snap. And there she is, Esmeralda. The ground fabric on this is really nice. I am stitching this on 32 count Mercedes Lugana from Picture This Plus. Like I said, I could have finished it yesterday, but I didn't have a free 11-inch Q-snap. And when I bought it, the reason that I bought this particular Bella Filipina is because I wanted something that I could fit on an 11-inch Q-snap so that I could bead as I go. But then it turns out I don't like stitching on an 11-inch Q-snap. It's too heavy and it hurts my wrist over time. So I prefer the 8-inch Q-snap, but that is where she's at. Yesterday I did all that beading on the top. Everything that I could fit into the area of my 8-inch Q-snap I did. And so when I free up my 11-inch Q-snap, which I'm using on the next project you're going to see, then I will come back and finish the beading on this, which is just in her tail. And I think there's another one of these blue swirls over here. And then she will be done. And this falls thoroughly into the category of things I like to stitch, but not so much into things that I would want to put on my wall. However, my younger daughter, my 11-year-old, this is something that she would enjoy for sure. So I will give this to her when it is done, which could be, it will be this month, I'm sure of it. And then the last piece, which has been, I thought I was so close to a finish on this because I had finished the lady. And so I was just having to do kind of the stuff around her. And maybe in mid-January, I finished the entire left side grass and whatnot. And I thought to myself, I had finished all of this back stitching, cry neck, everything, and I didn't think there was any over here. So I pulled it off the Q-snap and I centered it over here because I knew I had a little bit of stitching left to do in the mushrooms, and then I realized I still had all this grass to do over here. And I was like, ugh, and I put it away. but I have been pulling it out. I think it was yesterday's temperature stitch and today's temperature stitch, so the grass might get done today. I gotta take this off the Q snap. And then all I will have left is beading. And she is massive. This is a 25 count vintage country mocha Lugana. And so she would have been big on like a 28 or a 32 count, but she is massive on this 25 count. And I kind of love it. Here she is. This is where I've been working. There's just a little bit left of the grass right in here. And then I'm missing a little bit right there. And then all of this stitching will be done. I don't even, yeah, I can't even like see the whole thing. Yeah, anyways, there she is. This is definitely going on my wall. I started this in March 1st of 2023, and I love it. I love the way the back stitching looks. I find that on this 25 count, the stitches, they aren't as puffy, they lay flat, so the back stitching in her skin looks very natural. When I'll pull Esmeralda out again to show you kind of, when it's on the puffy stitches, it doesn't lay as flat, and I don't like it as much. I think I could have done better on one of her eyes. One of her eyes looks a little bit goofy, but I can fix that. And then they kind of blend in, but if you can see like the little hummingbirds in her hair, so cute. And her dress, which is gonna have a bunch of beads in it. In the pattern, and my youngest daughter is so disappointed that I'm not gonna do this, but there are all of these symbols, which I believe, I looked it up once and I can't remember if it's zodiac or if it's like what they mean. If it's zodiac or if it's like earth, air, wind, and fire. There's one in each of these as well. And I don't remember what they stand for, but I decided not to put them in there. They're also all over the skirt and they don't mean anything to me, and I don't want to do them. I think it looks great without them. I'm sure it would look great with them, but I'm not going to be doing those symbols. And that's the end of the WIP parade. That's all of my projects. Oh, I said I was gonna show the skin on this one. The back stitching that I'm not as happy with. So on this Esmeralda, maybe it's because the backstitch color is lighter, or maybe I think it's because on this 32 count, which is actually probably more like a 36 count on the picture this plus, the stitches are so puffy that it's kind of forcing the backstitch to be elevated as well, and it's just not getting as nice of an effect as I see on this 25 count. To compare it, yeah, back to that backstitch, I think that this is the superior fabric as far as backstitching skin. However, there's something to be said for like the daintiness of doing this on a 32 count, especially if I'd done this skin 1/1, it probably would have laid flatter and then the backstitching would look better. So something to consider for the future. Yeah, that is everything. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a while, and I don't want to make any promises, but my hope is to be a little bit more consistent, to update like at least once a month instead of waiting like 6 months to post another video. But I hope everybody has a great start to their month, gets lots of stitching done, and I'll see you next time.